Ikrola or Ikason, depending on the time of day, to my Nigerian viewers in the south, in the Yoruba region, or welcome to my South African friends. What do I mean by Africa has turned a corner on with the Nigerian elections? Well, Africa's most populous country, with 150 million people, Nigeria, has some trends in it which are both destructive and trends in it which are positive. For instance, apart from South Africa and what is left of former Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, there are a few regions in Africa that hold sub-Saharan Africa, which have first world or second world infrastructure. Nigeria does, because of the disparity between rich and poor in Nigeria. There is first world areas and second and third world areas. But there is also the interesting factor in Nigerian politics between the tensions between the Hausa in the north, who are Muslim, and the Yoruba in the south, and the people in the east who are Christians. Now, this has been the focus of the Nigerian election, and also was the focus of the Nigerian civil war in the past, which focused the power of the army, much like Turkey is based on an armed secular republic. Nigeria, which is part of the Commonwealth and has its head of state as the Queen, has a strong military role for the military and government, and also as a strong which the Hausa, of course, are backing the general to be their candidate, a former military ruler, who is a Muslim, for the Nigerian elections. But the strength of the army is notable because, of course, of Nigeria's involvement in Sierra Leone, where the Nigerians were officially helping the British out in Sierra Leone, although their own soldiers, with their indiscipline, threatened to shoot British soldiers, which wasn't helpful. But overall, there are major trends for both positive and negative in Nigeria. Nigeria has had civil conflicts within itself before about Nigeria's elections, and also this is perhaps the first truly fair and free election on the positive side that Nigeria's had for almost 26 years. What we must say is that Nigeria's, as a populace that is, for sub-Saharan African standards, or even in some areas of Nigeria, first world standards, is extremely well educated, extremely intellectually able, but it is on the other side of that. What is that intellectual ability being used for? Well, most of the world's fraud is actually done from Nigeria, and this is a major problem, and the endemic corruption in Nigeria is a major problem for Nigeria itself. But what the Nigerians have been able to seize over £1 billion worth of assets from people who the Nigerian legal system is based on the British legal system, more or less, and it has worked quite well in getting rid of corruption there. In many ways, the Nigerians would be right to say that corruption in Britain is not as well known about as the corruption in Nigeria, but there is still endemic in Britain that there is corruption. Perhaps that's right, perhaps that's wrong, I'm not sure. I'm certainly willing to keep an open mind. But let's get some background from Euronews on the election, the first attempt at the election, which was marred by a bomb attack, and the second election which I'll talk about after, which was much better carried out. Let's listen to Euronews.
Nigerians have started voting in the first of 3 elections amidst tight security. The vote has been marred by a deadly bomb attack on Friday and administrative bungling, which prevented it from going ahead a week ago. The 73 million eligible voters first had to register from 8 a.m. before actually choosing their preferred candidates a few hours later.
We are still upgrading our democracy because we are still not very strong, but I believe as time goes on, by the time we see the outcome of this election, then we can be able to know where we are and where we are going.
On Friday, a bomb killed 10 people at an office of the country's electoral commission in Suleja, on the outskirts of the capital Abuja. This poll will be followed by the more important presidential election on April the 16th, and then by the election of regional governors on the 26th.
So what they're talking about is the election of the incumbent leader of the government, Goodluck Jonathan. And he's very popular in Nigeria and is probably set to win. That the election took place the second attempt without a major incident of violence and a defiance by the Nigerian electors that they would carry out their election in a free and fair way, and it was transparently clear that there wasn't a great deal of corruption, although there may have been some on the local level. Then this shows that Africa's most populous country has turned a corner, and where Nigeria goes in Africa, many other countries in West Africa follow. Now, if we look at Ivory Coast, there is a clear marker and precedent set now that the international community, especially France, will not tolerate electoral fraud with the Mbagbo affair and Ouattara coming in as the elected head of state. Will African countries follow and accept that the big man era of the corrupt dictators and tribal chiefs taking over their countries and holding the ransom for rebel movements is over, and that now the real property owning democracy is about to start to flourish in Africa? Well, what we need to do in Africa is to create Middle East, a North African Union, an East African Union, a West African Union, and a Southern African Union with an independent Boer Republic. And I would hope that an independent Boer Republic would become an ally of Nigeria, but since they're both English or both European-speaking countries, Nigeria being Anglophone mostly as the second language, and the Boers being Dutch speakers and English speakers. This could happen depends on South Africa. And South Africa still has the most powerful army in sub-Saharan Africa. It still has the largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, and we really are looking towards them, a country which almost had a nuclear program, almost had a space program. Can an independent Boer Republic bring this again to the African continent? And can the Nigerians lead Black Africa to become a civilization in their own right? This is the question of this vid, and that's my analysis of the Nigerian elections. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you will subscribe. Thank you for listening.